This lecture is for parents who are standing at the edge of a broken relationship, experiencing anger, loss, and an unexplainable confusion all at once. It is not a place to assign blame or to debate right and wrong. Instead, we will attempt to understand through the lens of consciousness why some relationships become structures that can only survive if they are severed. Without this understanding, even words spoken with the best intentions can wound, and gestures meant to hold someone close may push them further away. If this lecture provides even a single thread to make sense of your current turmoil, please consider subscribing and sharing this content so others asking the same questions can benefit. Let us begin by reframing relationship estrangement, not as a personality flaw or moral failing, but as a survival structure consciously chosen by the mind. You might have overheard it at a hair salon, on a hiking trail, or even at a dinner table. My daughter-in-law completely cut off contact with her in-laws, and now my son is siding with her. These statements are usually followed by a heavy sigh, words expressing heartbreak, confusion, and deep loss. Other parents say, ever since he married, my son only visits his in-laws. He doesn't come to our home anymore. Sending him to graduate school, even overseas, I feel like it was all for nothing. This lecture is not here to fuel anger, to criticize daughters-in-law, or to assign blame to parents. Its purpose is one to explore why some individuals feel that cutting ties is the only way to survive, and why partners, like sons, become involuntarily bound to that choice. We will not reduce this to simple matters of personality or moral judgment. Instead, we will examine the interplay of psychological formation, environmental pressures, and the concept of the Bardo, the intermediate state of consciousness described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. We often ask, why does a daughter-in-law cut off all ties with her in-laws? Why does a son not intervene and even go along with it? Why does he not return even when advised to reconcile? These questions only address the surface observable behavior. This lecture, however, concerns what forms before behavior, the structure of consciousness, and the survival environment that shapes it. The Bardo teaches us that humans do not experience this intermediate state only after death. Life itself presents countless psychological bardos. In this lecture, extreme estrangement between a daughter-in-law and her in-laws is one such survival strategy, a response formed in a psychological bardo. The critical question emerges. When a daughter-in-law cuts ties, why does the son often follow suit? Understanding this is essential. Without it, any advice given to the son is nearly guaranteed to fail. First, this is not about taking sides. Most parents interpret it as, my son has taken her side. He's being manipulated by his wife. He has changed. Psychologically, this is not about siding, but synchronization. The son does not choose to take her side. Instead, he aligns with her survival rhythm to avoid witnessing collapse. Second, the extreme estrangement pattern shares an internal belief. Relationships will eventually consume me. Close adults will inevitably control me. If I cross the boundary, I cease to exist. These beliefs are not logical conclusions. They are learned fears encoded in the body during early childhood. When discomfort arises, this daughter-in-law cannot gradually negotiate distance. She cannot move from conversation boundary separation. Her only strategy to preserve the self is immediate, radical disconnection. Third, through the lens of the Bardo, this state is one where the previous world has already collapsed, and the next has not yet arrived. Upon encountering her in-laws, the daughter-in-law unconsciously enters a state where 1. Past memories of oppressive parental figures are activated. 2. The present is not perceived as safe. 3. The future cannot be imagined as secure. She is in a psychological bardo, and in this state, dialogue cannot reconstruct the relationship. Only one response remains. If I do not close this door, I will collapse. Why do sons follow along? Their psychology is key. Most sons grow up in relatively stable households, believing even if conflicts arise, relationships can be maintained. Discomfort can be negotiated. Dialogue resolves issues. After marriage, they encounter an entirely different reality. If the wife does not enforce extreme separation, he witnesses near collapse, severe anxiety, panic-like reactions, intense victim consciousness, physical symptoms, extreme language. The son is forced to make a choice: maintain my relationship with my parents or save my collapsing partner before my eyes. This is not ethical judgment. It is a survival decision. Most instinctively protect the one collapsing. Thus, a son does not act out of understanding the daughter-in-law. He acts because 1. He cannot bear to watch her unravel. 2. He cannot tolerate the guilt of causing that collapse. Experience has taught him that mediation worsens the situation. The conclusion is unconscious but decisive. Cutting ties with my parents is the only way to save my wife. This is not abandonment of filial duty. It is an emergency survival response. Borrowing the language of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the son enters his wife's Bardo with her. This lecture is not about persuasion. It is about understanding. Advice without comprehension wounds further. If this lecture helps you, share and subscribe so more people can understand this psychological and survival structure. Why do some daughters-in-law speak freely to their mothers while shocking their fathers? Why do sons struggle the most with this contradiction? Understanding these patterns is key to understanding human consciousness and survival instinct. As we explored in the previous section, extreme estrangement between a daughter-in-law and her in-laws is not merely a personality conflict. It is a survival structure rooted in the unconscious. Now, a critical question arises. Why is the same daughter-in-law perfectly normal with her own mother, yet explosive toward her father? The answer lies in the unique psychological alliances formed in early life. Her mother was likely the sole survival ally. 1. The one who mediated the father's temper. 2. The only person who recognized her feelings, yet simultaneously the one who could not fully protect her. The mother-child bond is a complex mix of coexistence, empathy, and guilt. In her mother's presence, the daughter-in-law unconsciously experiences, "This person will not abandon me." Words flow normally, the mind is regulated, the state manageable. But with her father, the story changes entirely. The key is that she does not perceive him as a present, conscious individual. The moment the phone rings, her awareness exits the present. Time shifts backward, age regresses, and suppressed anger resurfaces. In other words, a heart once startled by a young predator will instinctively flinch, even at a similar shape, long before rational evaluation. To this daughter-in-law, her father is not the man speaking on the phone now, but the embodiment of past fear and tension. The conversation is no longer present. It becomes an echo of childhood trauma. Words that emerge are not adult dialogue, but defensive, aggressive reflexes. As in the classic analogy of a child startled by a pot lid, the body reacts before reason can intervene. The father's words, tone, or expression are interpreted through the lens of past danger. This is not hatred. It is the mind misperceiving the present as the past. In the language of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, this state resembles the wrathful deity. Wrathful deities are not evil. They are fear made visible. Through verbal aggression, the daughter-in-law proclaims, "This time I will not disappear." It is a declaration of existence, not conversation. Why does the husband or son experience an even deeper shock? Because he grew up in a different environment, one where disrespecting an elder breaks relationships. Anger must be controlled, and words carry moral responsibility. Yet for his wife, the father is not just a relational figure. He is a psychological obstacle. The son misreads her words as hostility, feeling amplified fear. He cannot see the unconscious state generating the word. Now, why is this structure mirrored with the in-laws? The unconscious mind of the daughter-in-law projects her father's shadow onto them. 1. The in-laws are seen as adults capable of evaluating her. 2. They are perceived as authorities who could intervene. 3. They are potential threats to personal boundaries. Even if the in-laws have done nothing, her unconscious automatically classifies them as dangerous. Her instinct is, this time, I must close the door first. Much like a person bitten by a snake, instinctively avoiding any leaf that resembles it. She reacts to the in-laws not based on their actual behavior, but because they evoke the same archetype, authoritative adults capable of encroachment. A Chinese proverb captures this perfectly. 1 year's experience, a lifetime of caution. Once bitten, every leaf appears threatening. For her, the in-laws are not present day people, they are symbols of evaluation and control, echoing the past trauma of her father. Hence, even a simple expression or word from the in-laws is interpreted as a threat. Relationships are cut off preemptively, before they even begin. The Tibetan Book of the Dead reminds us, consciousness, if unrecognized, repeats the same illusions. This repetition is precisely what we observe. The daughter-in-law is unaware that her anger originates in the past. The father becomes the in-laws become social authority figures. Only the objects change, the pattern repeats. This is the unresolved Bardo, the psychological state, looping through time, unconsciously projecting old fears onto present relationships. This lecture is not here to justify the daughter-in-law's behavior. It is here to illuminate a structure that will not change without awareness. Advice or reprimand without comprehension does not heal. It deepens the Bardo. Relationships cannot spontaneously reset, they repeat the trajectory of consciousness. So when parents ask, why doesn't my son choose divorce, even when life seems unbearable? The answer lies in the son's unconscious alignment within this structure. From an outside perspective, separation may seem rational. But for the son, leaving the marriage is not simply ending relationship, it is perceived as a collapse of existence itself. Until we understand the underlying architecture of consciousness, advice, even well-intentioned, will be heard as threat, not guidance. What is needed now is not more words, but a clear view of this structure. Only then can we grasp why conventional solutions fail, and why interventions often exacerbate fear instead of resolving it. In the next lecture, we will explore why the son remains bound in this system, not from weakness or indecision, but because the structure of consciousness feels inescapable. If you find this insight meaningful, please subscribe and share. Understanding complex relational patterns is a journey no one should face alone.